Let's take a look at this problem. We've got Sawaya Company Limited of Japan. They're a manufacturing company and their total factory overhead costs fluctuate considerably from year to year according to increases and decreases in the number of direct labor hours worked in the factory. Now I'm just reading right in here, okay? Total factory overhead cost in Japanese yen at high and low levels of activity in recent years are given below. So they give us 50,000 of direct labor hours, 70 is the low, 75,000 is the high, and 14.25 million yen related to the low, 17.625 million yen related to the high. Okay, the factory overhead cost above consists of indirect material labor, indirect materials, rent, and maintenance. The company has analyzed these costs at the 50,000 hour level, and that information is given right here in the table. To have data available for planning, the company wants to break down the maintenance cost into its variable and fixed elements. So requirement 1 says estimate how much of the 17,625,000 yen factory overhead cost at the high level of activity consists of maintenance cost. And they give us a hint. To do this, it may be helpful to first determine how much of the 17.625 million consists of indirect materials and rent, and think about the behavior of variable and fixed cost. Okay, now you see on the screen how you solve maintenance cost at the 75,000 direct labor hours. Here's how you isolate it, and bear with my barking dog in the background if the sound's coming through. So we know that total factory overhead cost was given at the low and the high levels of 14.25 million and 17.625 million, respectively. So we would deduct indirect materials at 100 yen per direct labor hours. And how you calculate that is you take 5 million yen divided by 50,000 direct labor hours to come up with 100 yen per direct labor hour. So from there we know that 5 million at the low level and 7.5 million yen at the high level was the result of indirect materials. Rent was a fixed cost of 6 million yen. So if we subtract those costs, we're able to isolate maintenance cost at 3.25 million yen at the low level and 4.125 million yen at the high level. Okay, now we're looking back at the problem, and I've centered it a little bit for everyone. I think that might be helpful. Requirement 2 says, using the high-low method, estimate a cost formula for maintenance where X represents the number of direct labor hours. And I'll change the screen here and show you how we would do that. Okay, so we need to do a high-low analysis of maintenance cost. We drop in the high level of activity. Remember, it's the activity, not the costs, that you base this on. So it's 75,000 of direct labor hours. We had maintenance cost of 4.125 million yen. At 50,000 direct labor hours, we had maintenance cost of 3.25 million yen. We compute the change. You see the change being computed right here in direct labor hours and maintenance cost. And then we divide the run over the rise, right? Or the rise over the run. I said that backwards if you remember that from algebra. Sometimes those terms are being used. So the change in y over the change in x. And what we come up with is a change of 875,000 yen. Yeah, that's right, 875,000 yen divided by a change of 25,000 direct labor hours, and the variable cost comes out to be 35 yen per direct labor hour. So then if we plug it in, 4.125 million yen at the high level, and then take 75,000 direct labor hours, which is the high level of activity, times the variable cost we just computed, we come up with 2.625 million yen. So if we subtract that from the total cost, we're able to identify the fixed cost element as 1.5 million yen. So the cost formula for maintenance is 1.5 per year plus 35 yen per direct labor hour, and that equation is given right there. Okay, now back to the problem requirement 3, where we're reading right in this area here, and I'll move the mouse off. What total factory overhead costs would you expect the company to incur at an operating level of 70,000 direct labor hours? And we're going to drop in indirect materials, rent, maintenance. Oh, I got something coming up on the screen. Sorry about that. Fixed cost element and total factory overhead costs. So let's take a look and see what that should look like. Okay, and now you see part 3 worked out. Indirect materials would be 70,000 direct labor hours at 100 yen per direct labor hour. So that's 7 million yen. Rent, the fixed amount, $6 million, right? And maintenance cost, we've got a variable cost component of 70,000 direct labor hours times the $35 per direct labor hour. We just calculated that earlier. So that's 2.45 million yen. Add to it the fixed cost element of 1.5 million that we've computed. We come up with total maintenance cost expected of 3.95 million. Add those three costs together, that's the indirect materials, the rent, and the maintenance cost, and we come up with total factory overhead cost of 16.95 million yen.